we had tickets right behind the stage, really good seats in Madison Square Garden. And it was like towards the beginning of the show, I grabbed his forearm. I'm like, I think he's going to play Down on Train right now. And he's like, okay, that's Kyle's favorite song. All right. I'm like, oh shit, wrong guitar. Bruce turned around and walked back to where Kevin, his technician, is, and gets the Fender Telecaster Starburst. I'm like, that's the right guitar. And then boom, 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 boom. The guy, Kyle was having his own moment. The guy in front of me was like, what did you just do?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and joining me tonight is a passionate fan. We've already talked 20 minutes before I've even hit record, and it is Marya, right?
That is correct.
All right, Marya Morris. She read the Backstreets article and sent me the funnest email, and she listed 4 or 5 reasons why I should include her on the podcast. And number 2 is my favorite. I speak in sentences and paragraphs, which I absolutely love. Welcome to the show. Thank
you.
So
that's not even true. That was just some advice that was given to me a long time ago that I should do that. But well, I always fake it and act like that is how I speak.
Tell my audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I live in suburban Chicago, and I probably the record number of people that I'm quarantining with, which is myself, my husband, my own mother, my mother-in-law and father-in-law, and an adult child or 2.
Wow, so you have a big pod.
We do. We have a big pod. We have a relatively big house that shrinks by the month.
Yes, I imagine it does.
We're down to about 800 square feet, I think.
Are you guys doing okay during this traumatic
just got out
time?
of the hospital. My mother-in-law had COVID.
Oh, no.
Well, she's okay. She had a moderate case, which isn't something you hear a lot about.
Right.
And the odd thing is she had not set foot out of the house since March.
Wow.
And, myself and my son and my husband are the ones that run the errands, and we've tested negative 3 times, and it's kind of a mystery.
Wow, that is. Well, I'm glad she's doing okay. And I'm glad you guys are surviving. So that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Well, we always like to go back to the beginning. So talk to me, where did you grow up at, and what kind of music did your family listen to music when you were a kid? What kind of music did they listen to?
My parents are from New York, and I was born in New York and spent my potty training years there. And I moved to Madison, Wisconsin when I was 4. My dad was going to get a PhD and at the UW. And my parents were really radicals in the 60s and very active in the anti-war movement against Vietnam. And so I grew up listening to a lot of folk music and a lot of protest music like Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger and the Weavers and Peter, Paul, and Mary. And my mom also had all the Beatles records. And it's funny now to think that I was born in 1962. It's funny to think that I was listening to them contemporaneously with their release because they all seem like history now. But yeah, my mom blew through all the Beatles records one by one as they came out. So there's a lot of Pete Seeger, a lot of Eyes on the Prize. Which side are you on? We did a lot of protesting as a family.
So yeah, they were engaged, right? They were involved, and so you grew up with that kind of vocal. That's awesome.
Yeah, it really instilled my core values, which are the same as they are when I was little.
So I was going to ask you about that, Mara. Have you remained true to that? Do you still have a sense of rebellion? Do you still sense of, fighting for justice?
Absolutely. I don't even think of it as rebellion. I think of it as standing up for the right thing to do and the truth. The Vietnam War is a really complicated period of time in this country's history, um, because of how the soldiers were treated when they came home and the rift that was going on at home, the war at home, and it's how it spilled over into people's perceptions of the guys and the women who went to war. And largely, nothing has really changed. It was middle and lower class American kids who went
Yeah.
because they lacked opportunity. And a fair number of people in the movement back then didn't really understand that and blamed the soldiers. And I don't think I'm thankful to say that I don't think my parents really felt that way. They were a little bit older. They were graduate students. And so when there was a bombing on the campus in Madison, it was in the middle of the night and it was so loud. We lived 4 miles away and we all ended up like upright in our beds on the floor. And my mom said that was the Army Math Research Center.
Wow.
And she knew what had been being plotted and whatnot. And that was when there was like a division between nonviolent peaceful protests against the war and hardcore people. And it was a real turning point. That was in 1970. So yeah, but I hold true to values associated with inclusivity and economic equality.
Yes.
And honesty. And so I've had quite a week, as we all have.
Yes. What's funny is I was scheduled to record 3 podcasts last Wednesday night. As we're recording this, it's November 11th, Veterans Day. Speaking of, in remembrance of all those who have served, and after the results on Tuesday, I did my Doctor Who podcast, and I emailed my partner and I said, Charles, I just don't know if I can do this. And he said, I get you. He said, if you want to pass, he said, Holly and I can do it. Holly was our guest companion. And he said, look, I get it. If you don't want it, I don't want you to have to fake happiness. And so him being so kind, I went, okay, I've got to do it. So, but the other 2 podcasts I had scheduled afterwards, I emailed them both and I said, I just can't talk to Bruce. I just can't. Yeah. And so as we record this, it's Wednesday, the 11th, and things got better. As James Carville, I stayed up till 3 a.m, and James Carville on MSNBC at one point said, put away your Ambien, put away your razor blades. It's going to be okay. And I just wasn't, we will get off politics in a minute, but, my son was looking at me like, why are you so depressed? He's 31. He said, it's early yet. I'm like, it shouldn't be this close.
No.
It just
spoke volumes about
yes.
the
70 million of our fellow citizens saw what this guy could offer and said, yeah, I'll take more of that. Yeah. And I'm
it's sad.
It is sad. And
I don't want to talk to them. And they don't have access to the full range of news sources. And I get really condescending when I start in, yeah. But it just pisses me off. They're out there with $40,000 pickup trucks and their flags and their boats. And I've said this week that we've had, in my family, we've had periods of economic hardship. And my profession for many years was city planning, and I was a consultant to local governments, and I worked on behalf of local governments my whole life. And so I know the value of government and what it adds. So it's like, not once during our personal family financial struggles did I ever think it was anyone else's job to improve our standing. I wish there was higher payments for unemployment. I wish the foreclosure laws weren't like they were. Yeah. But I never thought, I'm going to starve government of all its resources and then complain what it doesn't do for me.
Yeah.
Excuse me while I put my hands around your neck. Anyway,
yes. Moving
but
on.
things are good. Things are
Yes,
good.
they are good. Yes, I'm very excited and very good.
I also had to talk my kids
No.
down from a Bernie depression in March.
Yes,
When they
yes.
said that they're like, I'm sorry, there's no way we're going to vote for Biden. And I was like, okay, I'm going to close this conversation. And then over the summer, just organically through their friends and through social media, it was like, we need to do something.
Yeah.
And I didn't, because I wasn't going to lecture them. That doesn't work. And they all were like, yay, Joe.
Yes.
You know, and I had a whole lesson that dinner one night on incrementalism, which kept everybody riveted, as you
Well,
can
and
imagine.
and it's the idea, right, that like Penn Jillette talks about in his podcast. He said that he was watching Joe Biden's speech, and he said it was a normal politician's speech. You're saying nice words, you're promising things, and the libertarian in me would have gagged and hated it. And he says, and I was in tears because I am so desperate. He says, I am so ready to be mad at a politician about policies. He says, but for the past 4 years, policy doesn't matter. It's decency that matters. It's kindness that matters.
Yeah.
And so, it's really good to see. I always like to ask how you discovered Bruce, but I'm going to ask it in a different way with this time. Do you feel like your need for social justice and this desire of you being raised in that helped fuel your love of Bruce?
Not initially. I mean, I was like an Elton John freak as an
Okay.
adolescent and early teen. And I have 2 older siblings and my best friend, older siblings, so we had the benefit of all that infusion of vinyl. You know,
Sure.
we were into Jake Isles and Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin, and I saw the Rolling Stones in the Some Girls tour in Chicago, and we saw Led Zeppelin at the Chicago Stadium, and it was a wonderful upbringing. But then what happened was my clock radio went off, and it had to have been somewhere between June 4th or June 6th and November 1978, and I heard, I've been working so hard trying to get my hands clean, gonna drive this dusty road from Monroe to Angeline. I'm like, who is that? The harmonica, the guitars, the passion in his voice. And I figured out who it was, and then I went and, did what you do. You listen to everything. That the lyric sheet from the liner sheet of lyrics from inside of the Darkness record was like, it's all in Courier typeface and kind of a little bit askew. I mean, this thing was like I had it in my notebook. I would open it and read it and then write down the lyrics. But then I don't feel like I felt a part of the scene that he was building until I got a little older, and I went to grad school, and I was working in economic development and neighborhood community development. And then I was really putting the pieces together, and also finding out about his commitment to hunger as a cause, and to veterans. And I've always had this feeling in my heart about my parents and as a family, our relationship to the Vietnam War, if you will, and what's happened to veterans. And I remember learning that like 2/3 of homeless people at the time when I was in college were Vietnam vets, and instantly, like, that is like, okay, he and I are really on the same wavelength in a lot of ways.
What I find interesting, Mara, is we still have a very bad veteran problem in this country, and we do not take care of our veterans as well as we should. So I'm going to put that there first, right?
Yep.
But I do feel like one of the things that doesn't happen anymore is what happened in Vietnam, where we blame the soldiers for the foreign policy that the United States has, right?
That's absolutely.
Yeah. And so and at least we have that going for us.
That was a lesson.
Yeah, and I think that's a valuable lesson. Yeah.
But then you look at like what happened with John Kerry and the swift boating. It's like, are you nuts?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a different topic. But
Have
that's
you
how I
seen?
made the leap.
Have you seen Aaron Sorkin's The Trial of the Chicago 7 on Netflix?
I haven't seen it yet.
It's really good. Of course, I'm a huge Aaron Sorkin fan.
Yeah.
He can't do anything wrong with me, so I really love the film. So you should check it out.
That it's on my list.
Okay, good.
I'm a news junkie, and I'm tapering off my addiction and trying to get into real enjoyable content as opposed
yes, that's what my wife Linda is saying. Maybe I won't have to watch 5 hours of MSNBC every night now. So
my kids are like, why does it have to be your backdrop every day?
Yes. So
it's breaking news, honey.
Yeah.
It's breaking news.
So you're discovering him, and the music is speaking to you, and you're captivated by it. I take it you just went to find any album you could find and just started
Well, yeah. I mean, I just loved the jangly guitars and the harmonica and his voice. And then then my brother was like, dude, he was at the Coliseum on June 8th, or, one of his first stops on that tour was in Madison, and our little Coliseum, which seated 10,000 people. Yeah. Everybody came through there. Everybody, like Neil Young Live Russ tour I saw there.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, why did you ask me to go? Rude. Yeah, so I went back and I listened to the first two albums, which were a little bit too adult for me at the time. There wasn't enough action.
Yeah.
Wasn't enough power and volume. And then Born to Run, obviously. And I actually knew Born to Run songs because I had made the big switch to FM radio.
Sure.
In that period of time.
Okay.
And so I knew those songs. I'm like, oh, okay.
This guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and
I always.
It was like I went to see him my first show, and I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing.
So I always like to preface this that the number of times you've seen him is not a fair barometer of how big of a fan you are, because it could be based on your age, where your economic situation, where you live. There's just a lot of circumstances. But for the record, do you know how many times you've seen him live?
I do. Okay, so I have seen him about 135 times.
Okay.
I say about because when they went to like printed home tickets, things got wonky, and I had a beautiful, lovely ticket stub collection that kind of went down the tubes. And I also had started a spreadsheet for my songs and shows, and I never went back and finished it, but that'd be a really good Biden era project.
I don't know if you know, but there's a website called My Boss Time. I will send you the link.
I know Bruce Bass, of course. I wrote an academic paper about Bruce.
Yeah. So it's called My Boss Time.
Yep.
And it has every show that he's ever performed.
Yep.
And you create a free account, and then you go and you pick the shows you have, and then behind the scenes it does a spreadsheet that says this is how many times you've heard Promised Land. These
I don't even have to do it myself.
No, it will tell you, like, for example, I've gone to 16 shows, and the only song I've heard on all 16 shows is The Rising.
Really?
Yes.
That's so interesting.
Yes.
How's it possible?
Yeah, I know.
All 16 shows. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Because I did my first show wasn't until 2002.
I know, which is something that I find really quite cool about you.
Yeah.
You got fresh eyes.
Yeah. So the other thing, right, is it will tell you your rarities. Like, he's only played The Wall like 6 times, and I was there at one of them. And, these things. So get ready. You will go down a rabbit hole, but it is a fun rabbit hole. So Elko has been on the show talking about it. He does this all out of labor of love, and it's My Boss Bass. So
I'm writing that down. Why don't I know about that?
Yeah. So the proud sponsor of Set Listing Bruce.
Oh, it is?
No, I always tell people about this.
Oh, that's like the Pod Save America guys. Not a sponsor. They mentioned something.
Yeah. So you mentioned Darkness, but let's talk. What do you think of Letter to You?
Jesse,
Yes.
I've been waiting for this record. This song, Janie Needs a Shooter, is very important to me. The tiny little outtakes that
Hmm.
existed. And then, but more importantly, really the Warren Zevon cover, and I guess not really a cover, he gave him the title.
Right.
And I think then Warren took it and wrote a Bruce Springsteen song, which is
Yes.
kind of funny in his own way. I needed this to be a song that I loved when this record came out. And I told a friend of mine, I told my friend Chris, I'm like, I'm too nervous to listen to it. Can you listen to it and let me know if I'm gonna like it? Every single hair on my body stood straight up when I heard that.
Hmm.
They pulled out every stop, and the production. I don't know how I'm not a music person. I don't never been in a recording studio, but I was so taken by how hearable every element of it is, and I wanted to uh, fly to wherever Roy Bittan lives and just hug him
Yes.
for the fills, the piano fills. It just means so much to me. And I hear darkness, the song Darkness in it. I hear something in the night in it. Um, it's just it's magical. When I first heard Letter to You, the song on the radio, I wasn't enthralled. I didn't like the strain on his voice, but after I watched the film, I feel thankful for that song, and I like it more because of what he put into it. And I
Yeah.
realized they should do a movie for the making of every record, and I would probably love every song.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yes, I agree. And I've just, it is such a gift. I have said multiple times that if we get a new Springsteen album in October, a new president in November, maybe 2020 is not the crappiest year ever.
oh, let it finish.
You know?
You know,
So, which
it,
is nice to hear.
it's been so fun for me to. I'm a gardener, and I take care of this huge garden near my house for a woman who she doesn't have the time or really the interest. It's a perennial flower garden, and
Hmm.
so that was my escape during the pandemic. The reason I had to leave the house.
Yeah,
Hopefully, that garden ever in good shape right now.
I bet it is. Yeah.
But yeah, so I had a lot of time over there, just
Hmm.
hitting repeat just to nail it down. But yeah, I'm enamored. There's a couple of them that I'm not crazy about, but that's always the case. And I
Yeah.
actually haven't been crazy about an album start to finish of Bruce's since The Rising. Magic came close, but I wouldn't call it disappointed, but maybe it's just the way that listening habits have changed. I just pick the songs I like, and then I never hear the other ones again, which is
Okay.
really, really too bad. It's I feel like I owe him more, or
Yeah.
something. I owe myself more, maybe. I don't know. I wish I was all in on all of it, but I'm not. There's things that
Well,
broke me, and I don't listen to them again.
well, I think I do that too sometimes. Like I will go, I'll pick 4 or 5 songs from like High Hopes that I love hearing, and so I'll just skip right that the 4 or 5 songs on High Hopes that I love, and I'll hear over and over again. Or you end up making a playlist of songs that you love, and you hear those over and over again.
Yeah,
And it is kind of nice sometimes though, where you just put the album on beginning to end and just like for the discipline of, okay, I want to hear this completely,
as
and
a record.
yeah, and enjoy that. So yeah, I
Yeah,
could see that.
yeah,
um you you teased that there is a downbound train story you need to tell me.
there is. Um, are we gonna run out of time? You're gonna have to
No,
call
you're
me
good.
back, Jesse.
And yeah, good, we could, no, we'll have a second interview if we need to.
Okay,
That's fine.
I have 3 stories
Let's
I
go for it.
shared for you. My downbound train story is this. So my friend Kyle, who I bought him his ticket for the show on February 2nd, 1981, to go the river tour.
Okay.
Because it's like they were $11 each. I bought 10 tickets, and I gave them away. And I said, if you don't like this, you don't have to pay me back. And just had the most fabulous night, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been one of my. He was like before the reunion tour. I always had to have somebody go with me, and it was always somebody like maybe they really wanted to, or maybe they didn't. And then
Right.
the reunion tour starts, and the internet's in place. It's like I don't have to drag people from my real life
Yeah,
into this anymore. This is fantastic.
I have my Bruce family now.
Yeah,
Yes.
and now I don't even want them to go. Sometimes I got to go meet my people, right?
Yes,
So
exactly.
like I would a certain thing that like they have showed jitters that I just need to have my own process, and it can't be about anybody else but me and then Bruce.
Yes.
So anyway, Kyle flew out to New York for 2 shows, and the we had tickets right behind the stage, really good seats in Madison Square Garden, and it was like towards the beginning of the show. I grabbed his forearm. I'm like, I think he's going to play Down on Train right now. And he's like, okay, okay. That's Kyle's favorite song. All right, all right. I'm like, oh shit, wrong guitar. Bruce turned around and walked back to where Kevin, his technician, is and gets the Fender Telecaster Starburst. I'm like, that's the right guitar. And then boom, 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 boom. The guy, Kyle was having his own moment. The guy in front of me was like, what did you just do? And I think it was like I had been going to so many shows. I was just so fully in tune with
Yes.
it. And I didn't know that he was gonna do that. I don't even know what the written set list said, if that was a wild
Hmm.
card or not, but it was like it was such a moment.
That is hilarious,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like you're just like sending. I'm
It sent the
reading.
message.
I'm sending you the vibe, Bruce.
Yeah,
That's great.
like this fella here, and he only played it like I think I should look again, but I think it was like only like maybe 4 times on the whole tour.
Yeah.
I was like, this guy's here now. He needs to hear this.
I love that story. That
Yeah.
is amazing. So, what's the furthest you've traveled for a show?
The furthest I've traveled, I've never
Yes.
been out of the country. Well, except for Vancouver and Toronto, they don't.
Yeah.
I've never been off of New York State. What am I saying? You know, North America. Um,
Yeah.
I've done. I I had the pattern of doing like the whole Florida run. I always go out east for whatever I can do
Hmm.
um, in the Meadowlands in New York, um, and then LA, and then I always do Seattle, Portland, and the one year 2003 Vancouver. I go, that's where I have places to stay and stuff. So
Yeah.
driving, like for me, the worst drive ever is to Auburn Hills in Michigan, which is like, as far as I can tell, about 180 miles north of Detroit.
Hmm.
But I think their venue's downtown now. Anyway, that's a pain in the ass because it's like a 7-hour drive.
Yeah.
St. Louis, awesome shows in St. Louis. I always go to St. Louis.
Hmm.
But
Very
the fun thing
nice.
was I had a job where I could fly. I could like leave and go, and I put all the shows that were upcoming on our shared calendar. So if I was at work, people are like, "Weren't you supposed to be in,
Yeah.
Dallas? Or weren't you supposed to be in Houston?" Like, yeah, I decided to stay here. I have a lot of work to do.
That's
There
hilarious.
was one time where I got to work and I got a phone call that I had a ticket waiting for me, and I like, okay, I gotta go, and I literally like left the office, went to O'Hare, and got on a plane and went to a show.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That is great. The closest I've been able to do is my other passion is Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so interesting.
Yeah.
He lived
And
for a time in suburban Chicago.
yeah.
I
Yes, he
don't know
did. Yes,
why.
he did.
Was that with the Swami? Was that during the Swami period of his life?
No, I think it was after Landy had gotten after they had fired Landy. Him and Melinda lived there, and anyway, so he had done an album of Gershwin covers, and he was touring, and he was going to Winnipeg, Canada, and
Oh,
it just so happened that the company I worked for at the time had an office in Winnipeg that I managed. And I went to my boss and I said, I have not been to Winnipeg in over a year. I go to Winnipeg once a year. I want to go. He's like, okay. I said, now I got to be honest with you. The reason I'm picking this weekend is Wednesday night, Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys is playing. So I'm flying in Tuesday. We'll have meetings. I mean, it will be a real business meeting, but then I'll fly back, Thursday or Friday. He's like, okay, I don't care why you're going. He says, that's you always go. So that was the best. And I told the guys, the scene in Blinded by the Light where, the young boy says, why are you coming to America? I'm going to tour. I did that. I'm like, what are you doing? Well, if I said, if you're my boss, I'm going for a business meeting, but the reality is I'm coming up here to see Brian Wilson perform. The immigration officer did not find it funny. He did not think it was cute.
Well, I used to, I kind of had my whole department on board with my mission.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
and I've
wonderful.
been there for a long time, and it was this was like reunion through 2006 when I left, and they were all cheering me on. I didn't like get in the weeds with it too much.
So, are there other songs that have meant a lot to you and your family?
Other Bruce songs?
Yes. Like, you mentioned about how, not necessarily the albums speak to you anymore, they're individual songs, but are there personal anthems or songs that mean something to you or your family? For example, go ahead.
My husband and I, we've only been married for 12 years. And when we got married, my big walk down the non-existent aisle was to Backstreets.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And we met on eHarmony, and I joined eHarmony on a dare.
Okay.
And I tried to prove that I was unmatchable. So I thought it was like a Christian website. So I put in like your politics, like other radical, progressive anarchist. I tried to mess it up, and then he popped up. And I think the only reason he popped up is because he happened to mention the Seeger Sessions Bruce Springsteen album.
Okay.
And what he was listening to right then. And I was like, God, you might as well just get married today.
Yes, exactly. Right? Like,
one of it was you have to watch Colbert or The Daily Show and Colbert back to back, no matter what.
Yeah.
And that was the era.
Yes.
And he did that. So he checked all the boxes. But that was
that's awesome.
That was the Seeger Sessions. I think in their algorithm, like they didn't know what to do with me, but they did figure that out.
If I Should Fall Behind with the Seeger Sessions is one of my favorite. I love that waltz version of that.
I know. That just, he's so good with the arrangements.
Yes.
He's so creative at, just to use a basic word like that. I don't know how to think in the way that he does to bring new life to songs that have been different. And it's just remarkable when he does it. Just think of like Atlantic City.
Yes.
One of the obvious ones, or one of my all-time favorites is the Tom Morello and Bruce Tom Joad version.
Right.
He'd always, obviously already rocked that song out before Tom came on the scene, but talk about reimagining it.
Yeah, and it is kind of funny that, Atlantic City, being from Nebraska, this stripped down and now has become, if not a E Street Band standard, it is a song that you are not surprised when the band pulls out together.
I know.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Was it the first song that was really the main song from Nebraska that the band has been doing forever?
Yes, I think so.
2000 or 99. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I guess they would do Open All Night, but that is I want to hear Open All Night like on a banjo. I want it in a bluegrass version. Probably exists somewhere, but
yeah, that would be fun. Did you get to go to Broadway?
I did. And since there weren't any shows then, I spent as much as I would as if I were going all over the country.
Okay, right. You're like, hey.
I have rationalization tools that are just top notch.
There is nothing wrong with that.
Thank you. So
Yes,
I
that
thought, if
makes
you're going to go
sense.
all that way to New York,
You
all
are
that way,
a wise woman, Miss Morris.
I'm not going to
Wise
sit
woman.
there and wish I was closer.
Right.
You know? So we were there on November 14th of whatever year that was, 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. It just, the show was just, like last week when it was on Saturday when they declared the election. I took this breath that I didn't realize I hadn't taken such a deep breath in maybe 4 years. And then I found other people online who felt I had like a similar experience with breathing. I think I held my breath for that whole show.
Yeah.
And I walked outside and I was just like euphoric. It was just like this dopamine hit. And the way he speaks, the way he describes things, and he continues to be able to do it like in the radio show.
Yes.
From my home, like, where do you get this language? Where you he's not even like necessarily repeating the same concepts, even though it's all thematic.
What's interesting,
words,
I've had a writer named Ron Martz on the show a couple of times, and he has mentioned that Stephen King and Bruce Springsteen are his two main influences of writing. They were his influences, yes.
He's a Mainer.
Yes. And no. And he said, we know he's a good storyteller, so why are we shocked how good of a storyteller he is through his radio show? Why are we not, and it's true. He has weaved such great stories in those radio shows.
But it's almost like every time he has to write a speech for Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or whatever, it's like he did it again.
Yeah,
he came up with a different angle on the same themes. He made it all new.
Yeah, I agree.
I transcribed something from near the end of the Letter to You film. Like, I'm using this the next time I'm asked to do a eulogy.
Yeah.
I will give him credit because everyone is going to know those aren't my words.
Yes.
But just amazing.
Yeah. You said you had other stories to share. You talked about that you currently are involved with live storytelling on Zoom through the Moth, correct?
Yes, I do. Well, the Moth is the one that everybody knows. That's
okay.
On NPR and or whatever public media. I don't know.
Okay.
What it is, but I have been telling stories on stage for about 5 years, and then I started doing the Moth because I was it was a challenge to myself. The stories can only be 5.5 minutes, 6 tops.
Okay.
And it requires you to edit and throw out stuff that you wish you left in and whatnot. And I had a lot of success right away. And
good for you.
Nothing like winning to make you want to continue to compete.
Yes.
So I've been in. I don't know how many I've been in overall, but I've won like 6 regular story slams, and I've been in 3 grand slams and won 2 grand slams.
Nice.
And the very first story I ever told was about this amazing lengthy encounter I had with Bruce. It makes me laugh now because one of the things I'm doing right now is I'm coaching other storytellers.
Yes.
And the story I told that night violated all the rules that now I think are really important. Yeah.
Well, you teased that you had that story to share.
Yeah.
So you want to let me know what it is?
Okay. One of my dear friends, one of my closest Bruce friends, she's a comedy writer and producer, and she got a call from Conan O'Brien's head writer and said, Bruce or Patty Scalfa is going to be on our show. So if there's ever a time you want to come, maybe that's someday that would make sense. So, she's like, we're free. I'm free. And then
Yes.
we went to New York the next day, and it was the next day, and we got tickets at this event in the morning that was recorded at CBS, where it was like this sort of fake audience thing with her doing the morning show. And we get to the CBS building, and we go up these stairs, and we're like being herded like you are in an audience. And I see Bruce down a hall talking to somebody, and my knees buckled, and like all the blood drained from my face.
Sure.
And my friend Emily, who's a lot younger than me, she was born 1 month before my first show. Okay. She was born in 1978. Well, she's a spring chicken. She was like, just pull yourself together. She's like, what did Walter Payton say? Act like you've been here before.
Yes.
You're an embarrassment. So we go in, and the whole time that Patty and the band are performing, I can see Bruce, and I'm trying so hard not to watch him and watch her. And she is just lovely. I mean, I love her voice so much. And then we left that. It's like 11 o'clock in the morning. And then at 3, this guy from Conan calls Emily and says, well, they're already here if you want to come upstairs. So we got our passes and went up to the 5th floor or 6th floor at Rockefeller Center, and the elevator doors open, and Bruce is standing there, and he says to no one in particular, I can never remember where the men's room is here. And I did my best David Sedaris impression. And I said, I think it's the one that says men's restroom above the door. And then all of a sudden the tables turn, and Emily's like, don't talk to him. What the hell are you doing? You can't talk. So he goes to the bathroom, and we're just like, we spent 4 hours in this corridor with Nils was there, Susie was there, Patty, obviously, Roy Bittan was there, Steve Jordan, the drummer, famous drummer producer, and Bruce, and Landau and Barbara Carr and some other people from John Landau Management. And we were there as guests of this writer who came down to say hello to us. But we were just sort of there, and we had just said hello to Patty in the morning, and she kind of knew we were fans, but she didn't really seem to care. So like we helped her pick her outfit out to wear on stage. And
oh, nice.
Bruce came around with cookies and asked us if we wanted cookies, and then I had a long conversation with Barbara Carr about Chicago and what shows we've been to. And it was just, and then Bruce was like, you girls were there, weren't you? Like just some random event. He like made an effort to include us in the conversation.
Oh,
it was so cool.
What a lovely memory.
Then she goes out to perform into the studio, or all of them. There's like, 10 people in that band. And we all walk over to where there's a monitor on the whatever ceiling or whatever. And I'm standing right next to Bruce. There's only like 6 people there.
Yeah.
I'm standing next to him, and we're watching, and we're head bobbing and everything. And then I grab his forearm, and I said, when she's done, I'm like, were you nervous for her? And he goes, I was. How do you think she did? I said, I thought she was great. He goes, I think so too. He's like, I'm gonna go tell her. And then she came back, and there were like hugs and kisses, and we're waiting for someone to ask for our phone number. And then because Patty had said, where should I perform if I get to tour? We told her what venues in Chicago she needed to come to. But that was it. Then we went downstairs and we left, and it was one of these. It was 4 hours. We were there. So it was kind of nuts. I didn't share that story. I didn't share that story for a really long time because I felt I have the Bruce dreams I have are almost always about me being in a place that I'm not supposed to be.
Right.
I've snuck into a sound check. I'm in the bathroom, and everybody is outside, and I can't leave the bathroom because they're going to know that I snuck in.
Mm-hmm.
So it had that exact same feeling, but I was totally legit,
That like, is awesome.
I was allowed to be there.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned you love chasing songs. So one of the questions I always ask is, when he tours again, are there songs you've not heard live that you're still chasing?
Well, the the last couple tours really helped out with the
Sure.
song tasting. I hadn't seen Tougher Than the Rest since the Tunnel tour, and I saw it on August 25th, 2016 in the Meadowlands at MetLife Stadium. And so that was massive. That was the song I was really chasing again. But now there's an outtake on the river, from the river called Stray Bullet.
Yeah.
Really atmospheric, creepy song that I wish was in place of Point Blank, which always kind of bored me.
Okay.
Sorry, everybody. Sorry, Bruce.
It's okay. It's a safe
Yeah,
space.
it's a safe space.
Yes,
Yeah,
right.
I never needed that song. But Stray Bullet is like eerie and weird, and the story is odd. It mentions the Annandale train, which reminds me of the Steely Dan thing. The song about that'll be the day I go back to Annandale. Yeah, so Stray Bullet, and then obviously Janie Needs a Shooter, which
Yes.
I'm 100% assured if there is another tour that I will hear that song.
Yes.
And then there's a real oddball outtake called Richfield Whistle.
Okay.
Which, the only time I've ever heard it was when Tom Morello hosted a guest DJ spot on Sirius XM on E Street Radio. Yeah, and I tried to listen to it again, and I clicked on it on YouTube, and it like just loads and loads and never loads.
Okay.
So I don't know if it really exists.
I don't know that one. So that's interesting. That's good.
Really deep. I don't even know what it might be. I think it's a Nebraska born in the USA era. It's a super wordy song, so it's got echoes back to the old days. Literally about a guy in a job. Okay. So yeah, those are my big ones. I think the only real chance I have is to hear Janie Needs a Shooter.
Yeah. We're all crossing our fingers.
Shooter like me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 2022.
I always ask this question, but I think I should save it and have you a second time, because what have I not asked you that I should have?
About the research paper I wrote about Bruce and geography and my connection to the geography and the music.
Okay.
Other show moments.
All right. So
special ones.
So what I want to do is put a pin on it, and let's schedule a second meeting, and we'll talk about that.
When I initially contacted you, this was 2 months ago, and you're like, I'd like to talk to you on November 11th.
Yes.
I know that sounds like a long time from now.
Yeah. Well,
it totally cracked me up because it did, but then it was fine. I had an election to watch.
Yes, absolutely. And I will not wake you another month again. We will figure out another night to get together, and I want to hear all those stories. And so, do you want to do the Mary question now, or do you want to do the Mary question when I have you on the next time?
Mary question. It's ways, damn it.
No. Ways. The question is, does Mary get in the car?
Yeah.
All right.
Hello.
All right. So let me preface it.
Invitation.
So let me give you the preface. Jason Armstrong is an honors English teacher in the Philadelphia area. And every year he has his seniors, and they take Thunder Road and break it down as a poem. They spend 2 days going over all the lyrics. They discuss the imagery used in it, the themes in the song. They compare it to Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken. And at the end of the 2 days, he asks this question, does Mary get in the car?
Yeah.
So you've already answered yes, but do you want to expand on that?
I think that she gets in the car because when he described that song, he describes it as an invitation. It's all the hope that there is to have.
Right.
He's young. She has no reason to say no.
Okay.
There's no Papa lowering the boom.
Okay.
There's no stolen car. All the shit that's about to fall on everybody is still up there.
Okay.
They don't even know what they have waiting.
All right. I like that. I like that answer.
Note.
All right. If someone wants to reach you, what's the best way they can? Are you on social media at all?
I'm on the Facebook still because I got all my groups on there.
Okay.
Um, I'm on Instagram. I think I'm searchable by my full name, Marya
Okay.
Morris.
Okay.
And I supposedly have a website with all my Moth stories, but that's just,
That's
in
it's
development,
it's
Jesse.
a WIP, work in progress.
Yeah, my
Okay.
cousin's husband, um, former boss's son's working on it or something
Okay.
like that.
All right. Well, very nice.
Yeah,
Um, thank you, thank you for doing this. I'm going to email you, and we will schedule another time soon. And
yeah.
I want to hear all about the geography. I want to hear other stories, and I can't wait to visit with you again.
It was
And
fun.
yes, in the meantime, please be safe. Take
You
care of
too.
your family.
We're mask crazed up here in Illinois. I'll have you know. Despite the
Well,
numbers, all we do is put our masks on.
absolutely. And you, my audience, remember to social distance.
Yep.
Remember to wash your hands, wear an effing mask, as the man says, and take care of yourself and be good to each other because we need you to be. And for now, thank you, and we'll talk to you soon. This podcast would not be possible without the support of my wonderful patrons. I want to say thank you to Mary Thomas, Terry Smith, Dale Hosick, Elizabeth Brunson, Stephen Malio, Anna Lynn, Steve Rogers, Hollick McMillian, and Chris Bloom. All of you are wonderful people. I appreciate you so much, and thank you for supporting the podcast.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. The Set Listing Bruce is part of the Southgate Media podcast group. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.